Welcome to the Honest Hour. I'm your host, Luis Acevedo, and we're back on YouTube now. The strike that we had against our channel for some nonsense has been removed, and we can now go live again on YouTube. So be sure to follow us everywhere on MOT Media or at MOT Media. And yeah, our YouTube channel is growing quite fast because of the YouTube Shorts. So we're going to be focusing more so on YouTube Shorts. I'll be making little content on there additionally, but mainly focusing on the Shorts because they seem to be doing the best. And yeah, so anyway, back on YouTube. So probably have some of our followers there hop on. Have quite a few things to cover today. And as always, in case you guys are unaware, let me fix this here on TikTok because my Wi-Fi actually is just horrible these days, and the data is horrible. I don't know what's going on. I really don't. I'm curious if because they talked about shutting down some 4G towers and having all active, but I don't know if that's affecting anything. I really don't. As far as the data goes and the reception, that's all I'm talking about. I'm not going down any conspiracy rabbit holes with that. But anyway, so I apologize if the quality is not the greatest, if there's a lag. I'm working with what I got. We pay for like top of the line service, but it is horrible these days. And that's kind of frustrating, but it is what it is. Just got to deal with it, keep on moving. But yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff that we're going to cover today. And yeah, so let's jump right into it with Joe Biden destroying America in climate change lockdowns because they're one of the same, right? So, for those of you that are unaware, the Biden administration has sent more than 5 million barrels of oil to countries around the world: Europe, Asia. Those European countries include, I believe, Italy, um, and I want to say the Netherlands, and maybe a couple other places as well. But one of the places was China, as I just mentioned. And it's kind of strange, being that the FBI has stated China is the greatest threat to America. And was it really Joe Biden? No, that's a really good question. And no, America has been going down for quite some time, but this administration has definitely expedited its demise. That's for sure. There is no competency in this organization unless they're evil, which would account for the ludicrousy that we see, the lunacy that we see rather. But anyway, so you have the Biden administration drawing from the special reserves for our oil, and now it's reached pretty much its all-time lows. The time in which they compare it to was in the 80s, but I believe in the 80s is when the oil reserve, strategic petroleum reserves started. It's going to be lower there, but it's on a constant incline. And with this reached all time lows yet, I would say, I would make the point that we are probably at all time lows simply because we haven't had the kind of reserves that we've had before. And during the time frame in which they're quoting, if I'm not mistaken, was during its inception. So, anyway, my whole point with this is we are using this strategic petroleum reserves out of character. Yes, we will get to my opinion on presidents for life. Yes, I do think that that is a thing, but we'll get to that in a second. I want to cover this first, and then we'll get into it. So, you have the administration trying to lower gas prices by digging into our strategic reserves that are used for emergencies, but there is no real emergency. The issue is that the biggest issue is that we're not producing enough oil to then replenish this, and we're very antagonistic against the production of oil at the moment. We're all for green energy, and then we see cities and countries across the world struggling because they are going towards green energy. They are restricting themselves to fuel systems that are power structures that are not mature, and cannot withstand the kind of society in which we live. And so this all ties into the climate change lockdown, right? Because if you're going to introduce climate change lockdowns, you must propose a problem. And the problem is going to be a lack of fossil fuels. And so then you're going to have to preserve your energy. And one way to preserve the energy is to do lockdowns. And then during these lockdown periods, it will allow for current industries to be eliminated, new industries to be elevated, and then a transition will take place to where we're primarily on these quote unquote renewable energies. And so that is why we'll see climate change lockdowns. This is also why I think we're digging into the strategic reserves, is in part incompetency, because there are some people who don't really know, right? Uh, what can happen because they're just not really competent. But there are some other people who I would say are fully aware of what they're doing, and they are deliberately destroying the supply chain in which we have for fuels, and it's going to be detrimental to society, I believe. And it's a really, really big deal. And so I think the climate change lockdowns are going to be one of the next things to come up. And we will see this come into effect, and it will usher it, it will basically help people accept EV vehicles. It will help people accept the renewable energy and being their power grids being controlled, because this is where smart cities come from and smart grids. And you will see a social credit system be built off of this. And it, I think there's going to be some good things about it as well. I don't think that it's all bad and doom and gloom. I'm not one of those guys. I think naturally we do have a social credit system already in our world. In your own personal life, you determine who you associate with, who you don't want to associate with. You evaluate individuals' characters by their actions. So we have a natural social credit system. The issue is that people are going to be incentivized to act certain ways via money. And we're going to see the beginning of this through climate change lockdowns. Homesteading, yes, for sure, homesteading. That's huge. That's what most people should do, in my opinion. So yeah, that's what I really wanted to talk about with the Joe Biden destroying America. It's not necessarily him, but it is in part, because he's running the government right now. His administration is allegedly running the government, right? But all right, so we can go on to other topics here. I got some questions from Twitch. It looks like says people love to claim that Biden is comparable to the founding fathers. He is not even in the same category as them. I haven't heard anybody claim that. If anything, he is one of the worst presidents in American history. The only two people I can say that compare to the founders are Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt. I would agree with Roosevelt, definitely not Lincoln. I believe, I don't remember who the author is, but there's an interesting book called The Real Lincoln. And Lincoln wasn't the guy you think he is. I need to do a little more research, but I hear Andrew Jackson was a really good president. But I do like Theodore Roosevelt. He is my personal favorite president for numerous reasons. Now, let's go on to the should we have presidents for life? And I, for anybody who has listened to this stream before and listened to the podcast or whatever, support a president for life. I think that it would be extremely beneficial to have a president for life. The reason is very simple. A king, yeah, I am for a monarchy. I think monarchies are the most stable form of government we have ever seen. And we have a bunch of historical evidence to suggest this. The most stable form of governments have been under monarchies. Societies have been the most cohesive they've ever been during monarchies. Revolutions only encourage what? Revolutions only encourage or only take republics or democracies. Overthrown, serf, and peasant revolts. So you're un-American. Um, I mean, I don't know if I would call myself un-American. I love the American spirit. I love the individual aspect of being an American. I love our go-getter mentality, our pioneering. I think there's a distinct difference. Well, I think maybe a dictatorship has a little misconception these days. I don't think it's understood as it properly should be. Yeah, because my internet is very crappy. So let me go on to the data, see if that helps out at all. Trying to deal with this as we go along. But yeah, I think that having a president for 4 years doesn't allow you to get much done. It really doesn't. It's not a stable argument. It's the most common form of government as well throughout civilized nations. So, I mean, that's why I would support it. I think that you would have your cover. No, definitely not. Definitely not. Fascism is where you want the government to basically control or have be linked with private institutions. I think that it would be possible to have a monarchy where you have a free market. That's what I think. I think Biden is really funny. I really do, genuinely. I think Trump was funny too. I'm not a big Trump fan though. I don't really care for Trump. Not at all. But give me a second here because I'm going to be more vigilant on who is in the chat here or diligent, whatever. So, one main reason why I think Trump was hilarious, 100%. 100%. Trump was hilarious. So is Biden, though. I mean, who knows? Maybe Biden is the greatest troll of all time. Trump was a joke. Yeah, in some ways he was, for sure. For sure. We can agree on that. I didn't vote for anybody in 2020. I actually told people not to vote in 2020. Um, anyway, oh my God, all governments are corrupt because mankind is corrupt. Power gets to people's heads. Why are people talking about Trump? He won't run in 2024. He's definitely going to run in 2024, I think. We'll see, though. I could be wrong, but I'm almost sure he's going to run in 2024. And we're going to have a Republican in office. We're going to have a Republican controlled House and presidency. But anyway, 4 years is all a president gets to serve. I'm sorry, 8 years, in total of 8 years. 2 terms, 8 years. The first 4 years, he's going to be spent, it's going to be spent and it's just difficult. There's a lot of things that you have to do in order to ensure you will win the following election cycle. Guys, I'm working with what I got here. I'm right next to the router, and now my computer Wi-Fi is acting up. My phone Wi-Fi is acting up. It's been doing that in our area. I don't know why that is. It doesn't matter where I'm at. My data is acting up, but whatever. So 8 years is what a president has to get things done. But at the same time, you have the House of Representatives, they get 2 years, and then you get senators who get 6 years. Now, this seems like a good idea because then you can make sure that if somebody isn't doing something you don't like, you can get them out of office. However, it increases, in my opinion, the probability of instability within the government because you can get a bunch of, and this is arguably what checks and balances are for, but then it makes it hard to have any long-term plan. It makes it really hard to have any long-term plan if your government is uh, con- on YouTube, Twitch. Did you know, John? Yeah, I saw that yesterday. Whatever. I'm not here to start World War III. Over some comments. Right, right, right. So yeah, I mean, it's going to be easy. I mean, look at China and Russia, right? I mean, they have the same, and you look at these other countries that have the same president for life. They can do so many things. We can't really do that here in America. It's very, very hard. So yeah, I mean, I don't. I think that it's going. I think it would be better for everybody, and I think it would just be easier to live in. I could be wrong. Respectfully, when I block people who are respectfully disagreeing with you, no, definitely not. Humans aren't greedy. If humans were greedy, we wouldn't even be here. We would have, I don't know, the perfect government is arriving soon. I don't think there ever will be a perfect government. I think I know what you're alluding to. Could be wrong. Christianity. Um, the second coming of Christ. That's probably what you are referring to. So, yeah, longer terms, more money for politicians, and presidents for life. Presidents for life. And then the other thing that I would encourage is big families. For people to have big families, you know, Elon Musk, it's just been revealed. Have you heard of inflation? Deflation's the real problem. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in there because not too many people are talking about it, but deflation is the real problem. We covered it numerous times here. Also, the host is intelligent, has high tolerance. Well, thank you. I don't know if you're being sarcastic because there's a lot of times you come in here and you are very rude, intelligent d-bag. You could have kicked me off plenty of times, but doesn't respect. Yeah, I could have. So I don't think you're being sarcastic. You have a rogue mod then who is blocking. Um, I don't know. I don't know that anybody in here is a mod at the moment. I made one person a mod ever. So the perfect government will be ruled by Jesus Christ. He is the solution. Yeah, I mean, I agree partially with that. 100%. That well, maybe I agree totally with that. Yeah, I would say I agree totally with that. But as I was saying, you know, Elon Musk had just broke that Elon Musk had twins, father twins, with one of his top executives last year. And I guess it went under the radar until just now news broke. And he made a tweet about it saying that, you know, I'm just doing my part. The world's population is collapsing. I'm just having a bunch of kids. I don't really care for Elon Musk too much, but I totally agree with him on that point. I think that good, smart people should have more children, should have big families. I feel like that should be a huge wave that people get behind. Having large families because family is said we are underpopulated. He did. And so that's why, you know, he's out there crushing. He has like 12 kids, couple different baby mamas. You can have 12 kids with the same woman too, but hey, some people do it that way. Some people do it other ways. Whatever. And either way, it's great to have big families because family is wealth. Money is not wealth. Money is a tool of convenience. It's a way of transferring data, information for access to certain things. But family is the real wealth because community is the real wealth. Are you a Republican? Um, you know why? Because he's loaded. You don't need to have a lot of money to have children. That's an insane argument. That's an insane way of thinking that only modern Westerners think that way, that I must have a lot of money to have a lot of children. And then to answer your question, are you a Republican? Um, I wouldn't consider myself a Republican, but I align much more with the right than I do the left, especially today. Especially today. So yes, um, I don't know. I'm not a registered Republican or anything. Climate change lockdowns? Yeah, we'll get into it. Technically speaking, you do need a lot of money for a lot of kids. No, you technically don't. Look at tribes, man. Tribes have a bunch of kids and no money. Literally no money. They ain't got no money in the tribes. And think about all the people in poor areas, right? Who have the most children? It's usually people in impoverished areas in the first world. And they do just fine raising their children. Now, mind you might not agree with their teachings or anything like that, but you definitely can. And you can make your own food. And you can have local communities in which you're localizing your supply chain, which then makes you more robust and requires less money rather than you would need if you were living in cities. Right now, in today's age in the continent, you need money for big families. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I think that you can have a big family with very little money. You just have to be frugal and you have to be more self sufficient. That's the biggest thing. And this is a huge thing that we need to be focused on, I believe, especially good people raising good children. My dude, you sound not. Oh, okay. I don't think that you know what that word means. Have you ever watched The Princess Bride? You guys keep throwing around fascists, and it's like, I don't think you know what that word means because you don't. You literally don't. You're showing it. I've explained it to you what a fascist is, and I don't agree with that at all. Nor do I agree with socialism, communism. None of it. None of it. Uh. So there was another question in here. So climate change lockdowns. Yeah, go over that really quick again. What we're going to see because of the energy crisis that are arising right now is an attempt to preserve our energy sources. And so the way that that's going to be introduced is through climate change lockdowns. And these climate change lockdowns will then be under the guise of mitigating CO2 emissions, saving the planet, and encouraging society to go over to EV vehicles and also eliminating the fossil fuel industry slowly. So that's essentially what climate change lockdowns are going to start introducing, and then the social credit system and all this other stuff as well. And then smart cities, you get it, you got it. That's it. You believe you can raise without money, however, real life says otherwise. No, real life agrees with me. Once again, you can raise a family on a farm with very, very little money. With you right now. Right now, you can raise a family with little to no money. You definitely can. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's a preferred way of life, but it is possible because money is not needed to live, or money is not required to live. Are you running on hotspot? No, I got my Wi-Fi on. My Wi-Fi is acting like crap. I got my data on. The data's not working. I don't know what it is. I talked about it earlier. So, how can a big family afford medical care in America? Well, medical care actually isn't that expensive, and you don't need to go to the doctor that often. It's dumb how often we go to the doctor. You believe you can raise kids? Trump 2024. The stream is lagging so bad. I know. I apologize. There ain't nothing I can do. Where do you think energy comes from? Fossil fuels, quote unquote. Social credit system, are we just getting scared of fake things now? It's definitely not a fake thing. Social credit system exists right now. It really does. You determine who you want to associate with. You evaluate their character and their actions. Society does this already. We have prisons for a reason. Because you failed, your social credit score dropped below the acceptable level to be free in society. We do this all the time. We shame people who have low social credit scores. It already exists. It's not a fake thing. It's a very real thing that's existed throughout civilization. Communism and socialism is poison and needs to be stopped, especially those neo-pronoun. Presidency for life would make us a hybrid monarchy. Hybrid, I like that. High quality individuals. 5,000 per dental care. You don't even need to go to the dentist, man. I don't know how much I can dispel on. I don't know how much I can say on this without TikTok getting irritated or YouTube banning me for more medical things. But anyway, just look up Agenus Vonderplanets. Look up when toothpaste was invented and why toothpaste was invented. A lot of dental professionals stated that toothpaste is not needed if you just eat the proper foods, which is a raw animal-based diet. You will get enough vitamins and nutrients to have strong teeth. And the body odors in which you smell, whether it be from your mouth or from your armpits, have to do with your diet. Clean diet, clean smell. It's not easy. It's not preferred way. That's literally my point. Okay, well, then we agree. Nobody said it was easy. I'm not making the claim it's easy. I'm just saying it's possible. Yes, give them a grain of rice for each kid per day. No, just work. Just work. Literally, just work. This dude's going to blame Biden for his Wi-Fi. I would never do that. I blame AT&T for my poor Wi-Fi. So now we're just going to be, Spectrum, whatever. Spectrum, AT&T, whatever. So once again, in North America, not plausible. No, once again, we agree that it's not easy, but it is possible. Not plausible. Okay, different word, but it is plausible. That's surviving, my guy. If a lifestyle isn't easy, preferable, or sustainable, it is sustainable. Just because it isn't easy or preferable doesn't make it not sustainable. I call for a board meeting. Okay. Yeah. Those are the dumbest, most stupidest, unhinged tanks. Okay. Well, I'm going to be more liberal with my ban hammer. So ban. Boom. Get out of here. Boom. LOL. If it isn't easy, it isn't sustainable. That's not true at all. That's an insane thing. It's not easy to dig up, quote unquote, it's not easy to dig up the material that's required to make sustainable, quote unquote, energy resources like solar panels or things of that nature. It's not easy to dig those materials up. Work on McDonald's wages, try to support a family. You can. You certainly can. If you're very strategic and you live in the right place, you can certainly do it. And if you have the skill set. And also, why just rely on that McDonald's income? Why not be a hustler? Be a hustler. Thoughts on nuclear energy? I don't know much about it, but I hear that it's a clean source of energy. And I think it's very misunderstood. But once again, I don't know much about it, so I can't go into it. A logical analogy. Mining resources and supporting a family are very different. Yes, fair. But my point is sustainability. We were talking about sustainability. Skill set for what? Flipping burgers? No, you can learn other skill sets outside of it. People shouldn't have to give away a comfortable living so can have kids. Yeah, that's the American way, and the American way is leading us down a horrible path. Sacrifice money for more kids is my view. After 3 kids, all men and women should be definitely not. Definitely not. What's going on? What's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
What's going on? Right, yourself?
Hey, I'm doing pretty good. I like your topics there. So have you heard about, the World Economic Forum, and it seems like one of the things they were kind of pushing in their documentation was people that live in the countryside were kind of like the bad people, and people that should live in the city, and because they're going to want to be on their own and kind of produce on their own, and that's kind of they're kind of portraying this as a negative thing. So I was wondering what your thoughts on that. Like, I live on an acreage, like this is 3 acres. It's actually a lot of the acreage has a lot of trees and stuff on it, so it's not a lot of land to use. But I think even on like my little bit of land that I have with 3 acres, if I wanted to, I could produce enough food for my family, 100%. Like, it's a little hard to live in Canada. We have cold winters. But for example, like a chicken coop, 100 chickens, you can freeze those in the freezer. You can have lots of potatoes growing, things like that. So it seems like that's the direction people should be going in. And the powers that be are pushing us in another direction. We're just dependent on the government and whatnot. So it's kind of nice to see your topics there. Like, it seems that that's the kind of direction you're thinking in. And I think it's kind of a big issue that we need to push back against. So
100%, man. I really appreciate your lifestyle. You know, our goal, my family's goal, well, I should really say my goal, is to own quite a bit of acreage as well. I grew up on 5 acres of land. My dad now owns about 10 acres of land. Didn't really use it for the purposes that you're using it for, but that is what I intend to do as well, to have a homestead, to be more self-sufficient. And people don't understand that you can feed an entire city probably off of like a quarter acre to an acre worth of land. If you not necessarily feed them everything, but you can provide a good source of good amount of food for a large population, a decent sized population, from a quarter acre to a half acre of land if you use it right. So there's a huge misconception with that, with that. But I totally agree with what you're saying. This is why we have seen the destruction of family. I mean, why do you think nobody makes this point at all? I feel like I'm the only one that makes this point. Neighborhoods encourage you to live amongst strangers, and typically people don't really talk with their strangers. I mean, don't talk with their neighbors. And where you should be living is near your family, near your community, near like-minded people, which should probably be your family. And so this is the first attack on the family, in my opinion, is to put people in neighborhoods full of strangers, and it makes you weaker. And this is why, you know, they're encouraging people to rent. This is a huge thing, and I don't necessarily disagree with renting. You know, we rent right now. I think renting is a good strategy if you don't have the money to buy a house, because I think debt is a form of slavery, and this is a big way that they keep you enslaved. And basically, my point here is people. I agree with what you're saying. People should be focusing on getting a lot of land, raising their family on that land, and making it multi-generational, because that's the future. If you don't want to be in these smart cities, if you don't want to lose your roots, you must do that. And so you are, you know, you get it, man. You get it. Not many people do. They don't see that cities are evil.
Well, it seems like it's not that cities are evil. It's just like their new kind of doctrine on how things should run, how the world should operate is kind of, when you really think about it, it's kind of a really depressing kind of future for a lot of people, because basically what they want to do, they want to turn everything into like a service where you just kind of rent it or own. You don't really own anything very much. There won't be much jobs away, so you won't have much meaning to your life. You're just going to be kind of just existing within these cities and just living off whatever is provided to you. And they've kind of sold this as like, this is freedom for people because you don't have to work. You'll just get all this stuff for free. But really, when you really think about it, that's probably just one of the most, you're just existing at that point. So what kind of life is that? Why would you even want to live like that? It doesn't make sense. And it seems like the current generation's kind of like embraced this kind of reality, or they seem to be embracing it, but I think they're kind of lost and they're kind of a little disconnected from reality, which is really unfortunate. And it seems like what they're really doing is weakening society and making our society weak, specifically in the West. So it's almost like we're being primed for conquering, in my opinion, because we're just continuously being weakened while our adversaries are being strengthened over time, and they kind of get it. Like, they have a completely different attitude in the East, like what you want to call the Eastern countries versus the West. You want to frame it like that.
Yeah.
But they're building themselves up. They're doing what they need to do. They're kind of trying to ignore these Western ideas, and they're making themselves stronger. Well, we're making our society weaker and more dependent.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You know, one of the pitfalls of America, especially today, is the intense individualism. I'm a fan of individualism overall. I think that it's a good thing. However, people don't realize that you can go through an extreme with individualism, just like you can go through an extreme with collectivism. But this isn't talked about enough. These are too nuanced conversations. This is way too nuanced for most people to really comprehend. And you're the first person that I've heard, aside from a couple people I listen to and myself, that have actually praised the East for what they're doing, because they're totally ignoring the Western doctrine, which is a good thing. And this is why China's rising. This is why Russia's rising. This is why the BRICS nations will basically overtake what NATO is, and whatever Western, united powers there are in the Western nations. BRICS is going to take that over for sure. They're talking about making their own global reserve currency. And George Soros has even mentioned that the biggest threat to open societies is Russia and China, because they're quote unquote closed societies, which is actually a really good thing.
Yeah, like I don't like, for example, like obviously I'm not backing Russia or like that, or pro-Russia. Like some people seem to be pro-Russia, not really that, because obviously you don't want to be pro against a thing that's trying to destroy you, or trying to is like your adversary, right? So you'd want to. We're living in a Western country, so we obviously want to be on the winning side and be prosperous on our side. 100%. But the fact is, they're just being smarter about it. They're playing the long game, and we're basically. I think the problem is we just had so much corruption built up within our systems over time, because it's been so easy for so many people, and it's just kind of that's probably why the current generation is the way it is. Just we've had it so easy over the past years, and we just think that's the way things are going to be. But the reality is that is not the case, especially with what has happened over the last few decades with our manufacturing industries being destroyed and kind of like shipped off to China. So now they're the producers and we're the purchasers. And over time, the current generation believes like, oh, AI is going to come in and it's going to automate everything, and it's just everything's going to be free. But that's not the reality. Yeah, maybe some things will be. There's going to be a lot of things. There's still going to be a lot of work required to build things and whatnot, because it's just going to be cost to build all these machines and robots. It's not that simple, right? So the reality is that over time, since you've kind of gave up all your producing and about this other company producing, you're going to be subservient to them when they were subservient to you in the past. And the current generation doesn't understand this. They think that we're just going to, over time, we're just going to this magic AI, and all of a sudden China's just going to keep sending us stuff for free, and we're just going to sit back and enjoy all this stuff, which is completely nonsense and ridiculous.
I couldn't agree more. I think AI is one of the biggest myths of today because so many people think that they're going to merge with AI, that AI is going to become sentient, that AI is going to fix a lot of these problems, and that's a false belief system, in my opinion. But to get to your supply chain, as you were saying, with China, this is a huge issue that isn't being talked about, is our dependency on a global supply chain. This is why I encourage, and a lot of other people encourage, localizing your supply chains. It'll help make the nation more robust. Because what happens? I mean, look at the lockdowns in which we experienced, right? They destroyed all supply chains, which is why we're actually seeing an increase in prices, not so much because of money printing, but it's more so because of supply chain collapsing. And this is something that many people are oblivious to, because they're being drowned with information saying it's inflation when it's supply chain. Supply chain is our biggest weakness right now. You also brought up manufacturing. And I think that manufacturing, we're going to have a renaissance of manufacturing in the United States, especially during the second Great Depression that we're going to go through. I think that 3D printers are going to allow for us to make a huge comeback when it comes to manufacturing. And it's going to sort of decentralize manufacturing in a way, too, that's going to, in my opinion, make our localized supply chain stronger, because you won't just be able to shut down one plant that's manufacturing all these things. Because what if you have 30 people working from their garage, right, and they're all manufacturing something for the same company, right? You just have a bunch of freelancers, if you will, with 3D printers. So I think that it will make our nation more robust in the long run. And I will say this: the current generation and the relationship with the government is the same relationship that every generation has had with the government, and I'll explain what I mean by that. It's a contractual agreement between you and the state. You have to consent to whatever they say, and if you don't consent, well, then you got to change things, because then you get issues like what's going on in the Netherlands, what's going on in Italy and Poland, and what happened in some places across the world with the whole cough and sniffle debacle. If you catch my drift, there has to be a mutual agreement. So the only reason the current generation is going along with it is because, well, we can say that they're brainwashed, or it could simply be that they just lack moral integrity. And the reason they lack the moral integrity to stand up and draw a line has a lot to do with the failures of prior generations, predominantly males, the men in society, not protecting their offspring from this slow degradation of society. Like, look at the boomers, right? The boomers were the wealthiest generation that the United States had ever seen, and they squandered, they just totally gave away their wealth to charities, didn't really want to give it to their children. And this all started too with the greatest generation, quote unquote, when but we can go back and try to pinpoint exactly where it happened. But we are just basically, every generation has been brainwashed in some way, shape, or form, but they've agreed to the brainwashing. And so,
I'm reading some of the comments here. It's kind of interesting what people are saying as you're talking.
Yeah.
For example, when people are going on about AI and stuff, I'm actually a software developer. I work in the IT industry. I've been working in IT. I know with machine learning and stuff like this. I know about robotics. I know about all this stuff. Yeah, there's lots of things that they can do with that stuff. But some of the comments in there, they're like, the current generation, they have no understanding. They just read articles on like Wired and stuff like this, and they think the future is going to be. The reality is that's like AI, yeah, can do a lot of things, but AI is AI. The automation you need to build products is not AI. You need the robotics and things like that. Those things are very expensive. You have to maintain those things. So all your products are not going to be, just because they have fancy AI and computer software nowadays, that doesn't make your products. You still have to have a lot of human power behind that, because that's the most affordable power to build this stuff. Like robotics is very expensive. It breaks down. You have to fix it. Maybe on large scales and certain items, it makes sense. But but I think we already have a lot of that automation in place that makes sense. 100%. We're not going to have a lot more automation. Maybe we'll have some of it as some interesting robotics get developed. But yeah, I think it's like that kind of stuff. I think is because the current generation is they see some of this stuff. And they just it's been over exaggerated by the media and by certain people. So they think it's going to be a lot more than it is, but it's not. And I think brainwashing is a good thing. And somebody's put a little hand over their face icon with the brainwashing. But sorry, guys, you guys are a little brainwashed.
Well,
you think it or not, you are.
Yeah. So this is very true, and this is a point that I like to make, is that we're all programmed in some way, shape, or form, because that's what society does. And ultimately, it's up to your family to give you a better program than society. I mean, I don't know why this is so hard to accept, because we all have blind spots. We all do not see the world clearly. You can be as awake as they are. You can be the most enlightened individual there is, but you're still going to have blind spots, because we're humans and we're susceptible to programming. And this is why you got to constantly be checking yourself, and extreme self-awareness is huge. But I do want to touch on this thing with AI, and since you have more experience than I am, more knowledgeable than I am, this, because I'm coming at this as a layman. I like technology a lot, but I'm by no means a professional. I tried to learn how to code because I'm really into cryptocurrency, so I started to learn how to code on the Solidity, the language Solidity for Ethereum.
That's just kind of like the smart contracts and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. But my brain doesn't work that way, so needless to say, I was like, I'll leave that to other people who are wired that way. But the point that I'm getting at with AI, or the question rather, that I would like to hear your take on this. So, AI is a really, really good tool, but what people fail to realize, in my opinion, is that it's just logic. It is simply logic, and yes, logic is good. Obviously, like, it helps us build our world, our tools, all of these things, but it also has a weakness if it's just logic, if that makes sense.
Well, I guess like it's just logic within our brain as well, right? Like I guess they can kind of simulate, like for example, the Lambda thing where they're talking like it might be sentient, which I don't agree with. The Google thing with the Lambda, the chatbot thing. So I guess yeah, as we get along, we can probably simulate a lot of like how like the human brain thinks, maybe. But the thing is, like something sentient. I don't think a computer. I guess you could call it maybe sentient at some point in the future. But the reality is, like for example, a human and actual mammals or animals have a bunch of hormones and things like that, and those hormones and interactions within your brain cause like anger and what all these different emotions you have, right? So a machine would never have that. It's just like you said, it's just logic. And maybe it's basically has like its learning sets that it can look out and access data and maybe formulate that, respond. But that's all it's doing. It's not the same. It's not like a human, right? Where you have all these motions and interactions that go along with that, right? So
100%.
so that's why kind of comparing the two, I think, is very different. And especially with something like that, where you can put like all these guards around it, like they've done with. So I don't know, but yeah, it is just logic for the point, but I think it quite advanced at some point in the future. So.
Yeah, I do agree with that. That it definitely could advance, but then, like you've already mentioned, it lacks a lot of characteristics that humans have. Whether it be something like wisdom is different than logic, and also just emotions, pure emotions and intuition. Like that's something that it couldn't have, and I feel like it would have a hard time with ethical issues because you could, see logically that it would be better to save a strong, fit male in society who could be more productive, or a grown woman who's in good shape and healthy. It might be advantageous for them to save them over, say, a baby, right? Where most humans would agree that maybe you should save the baby, right? Like that adult has at least lived somewhat of a life. The baby hasn't. So, there's just a lot of things that I feel like AI will lack. But I think it is going to be a really, really good tool for the future. It already is a good tool currently. But I think that we put too much emphasis on what it's capable of doing. And so it's good to have a sober conversation about its capabilities, its pitfalls. And it doesn't mean that it can't advance, and that it doesn't mean that its logic can't be superior to our logic either. Like, I think that it's definitely surpassing us on that front. But there are so many other things that humans have the advantage over AI.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's not even the AI thing. I think it's more like the automation and things like that.
Gotcha.
That's going to be the more difficult part because that's physical, not just like in zeros and ones, right? So you have to build like, physical things, and the human body is just so flexible and do almost anything, right? So to reproduce that and have it cheap and affordable and maintainable is not an easy thing, right? So looking at like Boston Dynamics and stuff like that, so those big robots they've had, I think those. I don't know, they have that little dog one, what you call it, the Spot one, or whatever it's called, right? So that's pretty basic. They're now selling that, but those are the big ones that stand up and have to do all the things. So if those are getting battery powered, how far can that thing go without having to get it charged up, right?
Right.
And things like that. So there's lots of things that have to be worked before they're even going to be able to replace a human. And I think that's probably like decades away.
100%.
And those things probably cost millions of dollars right now because they're just prototypes, right? So. Yeah, so
yeah, 100%.
No magic coming for that.
Yeah, and
anyways, one point I just want to ask you about, like, should have presidents for life. So, what are your thoughts on that? I'm not sure I agree with that one, but
yeah,
take on that one.
Yeah, I know. It's not a likable take that I have, but I think that we should have presidents for life. I think that we should allow politicians to be in office, as far as senators and House of Representatives, if we still have the same government structure with a president for life, which would be kind of hard to do, I understand, but I think that all politicians on the federal level should have longer terms, because think about a House of Representative, they only get 2 years. Well, most of their first year is going to be spent trying to build up their war chest, build up alliances within the House, and it's just going to be politics essentially, as opposed to working for the people and then serving or giving good legislation for their districts or anything like that. They're going to be more focused on keeping their power. And then another issue you have is the revolving door. I'm sure you've heard of this, where so many people in both houses come out of politics and then go into being a lobbyist. And the reason they do that is because, well, now they have the network. And because they have the network, they can then lobby more effectively, right? We already know they're good with people because they got into office. So they have to be charismatic at some level, and so they should be able to sell on some level. And the reason they go lobby is because they want to make more money. So pay politicians more money, have longer terms. And then as far as the president goes, I believe there should be a president for life because they're representing our nation. I think it looks bad to have the figurehead of your nation changing continuously. It loses its, in my opinion, it becomes unstable over time, and in a much shorter period of time than what a monarchy would be traditionally, because monarchies are the longest lasting form of government. And historically, if I'm not mistaken, they're the oldest form as well, to have one leader at the top for essentially life. And I think that it makes for a more cohesive society over a longer time frame, which is what we should aim for, right? But most republics, democracies don't last nearly as long as a kingdom does. And I think that says something. And I just want to address a comment in here. So Toxic and Masculine says more money is never enough. Well, you have to understand that these senators and House of Representatives, they get like what, $174,000 a year, and they're required to have 2 residencies, one in Washington, D.C., and one in their home state. Like, that's very hard to live off of, extremely hard to live off of. And then it just, especially if they have a family, right? So they're going to then be more susceptible to corruption. Whereas if you give them a higher wage, well, then you're going to reduce the corruption at least a little bit. And I'm not talking about eliminating it at all. I'm saying mitigating it. I think that these are ways that we can mitigate corruption and increase stability in society.
And it's interesting to take. Like, I don't know if I really agree.
Fair.
For example, I guess in China, we don't really have even president for life in China, right? Because they have the CCP part, the party, and then I think they eternally choose the leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at China, like, even China is performing well, but for the citizenry in China, I don't know if I'd want to live under a regime where they kind of track you on your phone and control you in the way that they do and treat the citizenry, because it's more about the state is in the collective is above the individual there, right? So, so I don't know. It seems like there's a way that you could just eliminate political parties and politicians. Somebody find some other better way. I don't know how this would work.
Right.
But the politics, like, there is obviously problems with democracy, especially. I think there's problems with democracy in the way it currently works, where we have this democracy, and you have the media, which is basically corporate control media and tied in now closer with political parties now, and they just have so much power to sway opinions of the public, so they can manipulate the public so easily, and the public isn't that right, so they are kind of misled. Sorry to say the not so bright people, but and then you get these elected politicians in power because they manipulate the system, and it's basically corruption all the time, right? So I guess the democracy, maybe that goes back away, and you get as it gets too bad, you kind of eliminate the corruption over time, I guess, but it comes back and forth. But it's obviously not the best way to go, but try to keep things so it's still the people have some type of power, so they don't get taken advantage of, but you don't end up with all these corrupt, nonsensical politicians just trying to buy votes to get their next re-election, right? So,
right.
I don't know exactly the answer to that. Is like just eliminate political parties and have some other type of way of maybe you have to have experts in certain industries, and then it's like you have to have a certain type of expertise, and they have like maybe like boards or committees that get formed, and they have great bills that then the public can then choose to implement or not implement. I don't know, something like that. Like, it's just a fully different kind of system instead of this the type of system we have where we basically have people buying votes to get empowered to get money in the future themselves.
100%. I think that another thing that would help tremendously is to change who's allowed to vote. So we have a comment on YouTube, and this is the reason why I bring it up. It says, don't give them more money, make them live on a farm. They don't need money to survive, man. It's because the reason they're saying that is because I make the argument that you don't need money to live, which is very true, because money is not a necessity to live. You need water, you need food, and you need shelter to live, but you don't need money. In society that we live in, it makes it very convenient to get those things. However, if you know how to hunt, if you know how to fish, if you know how to build, you can get those things for no money whatsoever. So money is not a requirement for life, but it does make living in society better. But this is a point that I wanted to address, is that they should be living on farms. So this made me think that I think not only should we change the way our politicians are in office. I get your point with maybe changing the political parties or having no political party. I don't really know how that worked, but anyway, right. But you change the way people are in office, change the time periods, whatever. But then also for the population who's voting, there should definitely be some requirements. Me personally, this is the reason.
There should be like a test. You have to like pass a test. If there's like legislation coming up that you're voting on, you should understand. Like, for example, there should be. I think there should be like groups of things that you specifically vote on, and then you have to have a test that has some high level points that you understand what you're voting on. You can't pass a test, you can't vote. Something like that. So that you have an informed electric, not just everybody votes because it's all about getting the vote out. That's how you get stupidity within your system, because people, then you can have people that politicians go on buying votes from a bunch of people who have no idea what's happening, which is what happens. Then you have a very uninformed electorate just getting swayed by their emotions and voting in a bunch of nonsense, right? So
100%. So that's one thing that I would add. I would add a couple other things as well. I would be very selective in who could vote. I would be even more selective than I like the guest recommendation logic. Yeah, I agree. Like the voting thing, totally agree with. That's part of my conditions of being a voter. So the other thing would be, I would say head of household, because if you're leading a household, you're leading in a mini nation. You're leading You're leading what makes up nations. It's just a collective of families. So you're leading one little section of a family. So that's another qualification to be a voter in my book. And then the other one would be a landowner and then a business owner, because then you not only have, so like with the land, real world is going to affect you even more if you're a landowner, tremendously. You have to think about things very differently. Not only are you the head of a household, but now you have to protect your land. And so that's extending your understanding of protecting a nation, because the family is a mini nation. And then as far as a business, it gives you a much greater understanding as to how the economy functions and what successful businesses do and what unsuccessful businesses do. So it gives you a better understanding on what will work in the economy on a small scale and a large scale through experience and wisdom, as opposed to just theories. Because that's a huge problem we have today, is so many people are basing their worldview off of theories, but once the rubber meets the road, those theories crumble, and unfortunately they still refuse to give up those theories. So if people just have more skin in the game, I think it would naturally create a better voting population.
Yeah, I guess it's good to have more skin in the game, but I don't know if you want to make it only certain, like for example, because you might have a classism issue, like certain, you have certain people that can only vote, then they might only vote on things that are gonna, like the landowners are going to vote on things that are good for the landowners, and then everyone else is gonna get screwed over. And for example, I guess if you have one person voting for family, then I guess the comment is like, well, is it gonna be all the man always voting for the woman? So I don't know, like those, I guess is interesting, because it would make it, I guess these people have more at stake, but then we're limiting in some other ways, which can cause issues, right? But I don't know. It's a tough thing.
It is
the voting democracy, right? So it doesn't always work so well.
Right.
So yeah, coming up with the right solution. I don't know if anyone has the right solution at this point, but anyhow, it's nice chatting with you. I'll probably subscribe to your channel there, so I'll
thank you.
I'll probably check in some other time. But I don't have much time right now, so I'm gonna let you go. But nice chatting with you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming on. All right. So then we got some comments in here about what I said to the head of household. Yeah, I mean, it's not a right to vote to begin with. It's a privilege. And it just makes the family more cohesive if just the head of the household votes. This is the most conservative oligarchical. I'm not a conservative. I don't agree with conservatism. I think conservatism is a very weak political ideology. A lot of them fought against that, by the way. More of them fought against it than for it. And the only reason they got the right to vote is because the Democratic Party was like, yo, now the Republicans got, the African Americans to vote, so now we need to get somebody else to vote. And so they encouraged in Wyoming, the state government, to get females the right to vote, so that way they can then use them to combat the demographic, the fact that the Republicans had more people demographically than the Democrats. But then it backfired because the women voted Republican. Yeah, brainwashed men did. No sane man would. It all makes sense to do taxes separately. They fought for that. Not all of them did. Like I said, there was a huge anti-suffrage movement. Huge. Because they didn't want to go to war. That was one of the conditions of voting, right? You had to go to war. They didn't want that. And it's just, overall, it's a healthier environment too. It really is. It creates less division in the household. And that's huge. Because right now, they're what? They want to make it legal for 16-year-olds to vote. Times change. I don't think that's true. I mean, the truth doesn't change. The truth is always consistent throughout time. And the dynamic between a male and a female is true and it doesn't change over time. So again, I highly doubt females will give up their privilege to vote. You'd be surprised. You'd be very surprised. Hey, how's it going?
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm totally agree. Sorry, I'm totally agree about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is destroying the USA.
Right on.
That's why I support Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the best for me.
Right on.
I think Joe Biden was just a fraud.
I mean, yeah, but all politicians seem to be that.
What? Excuse me? I didn't listen.
Yeah, I said all politicians seem to be that.
About the Joe Biden, it was for me it was too clear because how can I explain that? 2 months just to select that president, the fake president, obviously.
Oh well, let's be careful. Let's
just for counting all the votes.
All right. I totally agree with you, my man, but we can't be talking about that on here. Just know I agree with you. I know where you're going. Don't take it to heart, but I had to get you out of here. You're gonna get me kicked off. Can't rent a car until 25. Yeah. Hey, what's going on?
Nothing. Out of genuine curiosity, I'm not big on politics or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So far, what has Joe Biden done, to destroy the U.S.?
Yeah. So, disclaimer for everybody. There is, yes, he is helping to destroy the U.S., but he is not the one destroying it. There are many other forces at work here. And he's just the figurehead for America right now. And so, one thing that he's probably not doing, somebody else is doing, but he's just the figurehead, is using the strategic reserves for our gas or oil, rather, and not doing much to replenish it. And so those strategic reserves were designed for emergency situations. We're not in an emergency situation, but we're using it because, well, it's looking bad on Democrats for the midterms. And we're then giving that to China and numerous European countries, our reserves, our strategic reserves. So it's just a really bad move on his part. And the move towards total green energy, really bad move. Yeah, there's a lot of other things as well. A lot of the ideologies he supports are only helping to destroy America. But once again, he's not the one necessarily doing it. He's just the figurehead for those who are more powerful and competent than he.
Okay. What is climate change lockdowns?
Yeah, so most people haven't heard of this, and you will be hearing about this in the near future. Countries are going to be locking down now to mitigate CO2 levels. And they're going to be doing this to also encourage cellular agriculture, which is just basically biolab food, because, well, farms, quote unquote, emit a lot of CO2s. So then you have to reduce the amount of livestock we have, which is why we see right now the Netherlands, Italy, Poland all protesting against the governments. One reason. And then the other thing that you're going to have the climate change lockdowns for, the main reason it's going to be used, in my opinion, is under the guise that we are running out of fossil fuels. And so we need to preserve our energy because of the energy crises that we're going to face, especially in the Western world with the sanctions we've imposed on Russia. And the fact that there's a lot of places trying to go on renewable energies, but they're losing their ability to feed the power grid at a sustainable level that they once were able to using traditional forms of energy. So it's going to be under the guise that we're running out of fossil fuels, I think, why we're going to have these lockdowns, to preserve our energy, but then also to mitigate CO2 emissions, and then also to change society's perspective on electrical vehicles, private transportation, and encourage smart cities.
Okay, I've never heard of that before, but I guess, like you said, I'll be hearing about it again soon. And I'm very confused. Why does it say have big families?
Yeah, I encourage good, smart people to have big families because we are actually experiencing an underpopulation issue that nobody wants to talk about, especially the Western countries like the United States. So, good people, smart people have more families, have bigger families, rather.
We're experiencing an underpopulation issue.
Fact. In the Western, this is an undisputed fact, by the way. In the Western world, we have a severe underpopulation problem. Severe. We're only having like 1.8 kids, and it keeps going down. When in order to have a sustainable nation, you need to be producing at about 2.5, and we're way under that. And this is why China, because China was also facing this problem, but this is why China implemented a three-child policy. And this is also why Poland has eliminated all taxes for families that have 4 children or more. So you no longer get taxed, an income tax in Poland, if I'm not mistaken, if you have 4 children. It's because this is a huge problem that nobody's talking about because they're being filled with myths that we have overpopulation. Not true.
Okay. That's basically it. Other than the should we have presidents for life? No.
That's most people's opinion on that, for sure.
By the time they hit Joe Biden's age, like, what are we gonna do with them?
Well,
he's too old as it is.
Well, then you know that they don't have much longer of being president.
Okay. Thank you for answering all my questions.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for coming on.
Bye.
All right. Hey, what's going on?
How you doing, bro?
Doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty damn good, bro.
Good, man. That's good to hear.
I actually, like, you have something posted on your thing right here said Joe Biden destroying the USA. Can I ask why you say that?
Yeah, so I actually just answered this. Just so everybody's clear. It's all good.
I'm sorry.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Not a big deal. So Joe Biden, I say Joe Biden's destroying America, when in reality, he's just the figurehead of the United States. And so there's much more powerful and competent individuals who are actually doing the destruction, and Joe Biden's just the figurehead. But if we see what this administration is doing, such as draining our strategic petroleum reserves, if we look at the ideologies that's being supported, it is all in direct contradiction or opposition of the betterment of the United States. We are taking from our strategic reserves of oil because we want to reduce gas prices. And that's not what they're used for. They're supposed to be used for emergencies. And then on top of that, we're giving this oil to other nations. We're giving our strategic reserves, 5 million barrels of it, to other nations. That's insane. And then we're not encouraging more.
I agree.
Yeah, and then we're not encouraging more production of the reserve of the oil reserve in which we're draining. So a good analogy for this is like, hey, I got a savings account, and just because my wife is upset because she wants to go do her nails or some shit, right? And then we don't have that extra money. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take from our savings account to pay for her to get her nails done. But I'm not going to be replenishing our savings account at the same time. Like, there's other things you could do as opposed to draining your savings account. Like, no, you don't need the nails, or you can just find another job or just be more productive.
Hey, Bill, I'm echoing. I'm echoing
Okay.
because someone had called me while you were talking. So let me back out and then re-invite me.
All right.
So
You want to socialize oil production? No, I don't. Never said that. Gas prices are dropping. Why aren't you thinking Biden? It's a short term deal. Short term. You do know that they're planning for $200 barrel of oil, which would then lead to probably a $10 gallon oil. Why are gas prices so high? Easy. Supply chain breakdown. Supply chain breakdown. Telling companies to only produce for our country. That would be good. So yeah, I guess in a way you could say that I am in support of socialized oil production. Or nationalized would be a better word for it. Oh, so blame him when gas rises, but don't give him credit when they drop. You do understand the only reason they're dropping right now is it's just an illusion. They're going to go up. They're going to go up tremendously because they have to. I mean, this is it's simple. It's simple to see. I would give him credit if he really deserved credit. I have no problem with it. I think Joe Biden's an hysterical guy. But there's gas, so it's not supply chain. It is supply chain, my friend. To only produce for our country would be good. Yeah, it would. So no exports? Maybe if you wanted to do exports with allied countries, but I would say focus more so on building up your national reserves. But Trump said Biden bad. I'm not a big Trump fan either, my guy. Not. I didn't vote for Trump in 2020. There's no shortage of oil. I don't like Biden, but it has little to do with him. Right. This is not my point that it's his fault. It's not. That's not my point. As I've stated numerous times, answering the same question, he's a figurehead. They scaled down production in early 2020. They haven't recovered. Yeah, for sure. You say it's supply chain, it doesn't make sense. So please, yeah, it does make sense. I mean, just look at, we locked down the world for what? 3 years, 2 years? It's nothing to do with a forgetful man or the war. What's going on?
Right. Don't talk about that, bro.
It's all good.
That my wife calling, killing me. Said she will stop calling, so I had to go ahead and call and get it out the way. Now, the question that y'all had asked, all right, I was asking, why do you feel Joe Biden is destroying the U.S.? And you saying that it might necessarily just Joe Biden is just a figurehead, and people, more powerful people behind him are doing it. Let me ask you this. The situation that the United States is in right now, how much do you contribute to the private space?
How much do I contribute to private what? I'm sorry?
To the prior administration.
One more time. I apologize.
No problem. I said, how much of the mess that we are in do you contribute to the prior administration?
A lot. There was more money printed and a bigger debt deficit under Donald Trump than any president ever.
Okay. See, and I'm glad to hear you at least say that. Because me personally, I believe in holding Republicans accountable. I also believe in holding Democrats accountable.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Typically, the first year and a half of a presidency is simply most of the effects of everything came from the prior administration.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm gonna give you a huge example of this is the oil agreement that Trump made for the oil. When demand was real low,
Mhm.
he made an agreement. All right, for a 2-year agreement with OPEC or Saudi Arabia, whoever it was. All right, when you made that agreement didn't end till this past, I believe, March or April, because Saudi Arabia refused to go ahead and up production because of that agreement that they had that Trump put into place.
Mhm.
That's a huge. Anytime oil prices rise, you're going to get inflation. When it rises at that speed, you're going to have inflation. It's going to happen because everything all affects everything, not just some things. It affects everything. Your food, how you get your food, how your food is made, all this stuff. All right, so that's a huge part of that. Now, when it comes to oil drilling and things, that's to it. There are responsible, and I agree, but I don't agree. There are responsible ways to do drilling. There is. Now, if we are thinking human beings, or at least believe some sort of science, we have to say that there is some form of it. Okay, what can we do? Should we destroy our economy? No. But is there a way we can do both? Yes, in actuality, we are doing both. Are they, when you have a business, I don't like what they're saying, well, they do price gaps because they do price gaps. However, it is not the full responsibility, all companies' responsibility to cut back to drill more. It's not their responsibility. Why? Because they have as a shareholder, you report to your shareholder. Your job is to make me the most amount of money for the most part as possible. Period. That is your job. So if drilling more oil is going to cut my profits, why would I want to drill more oil? That is dumb. I don't care how anyone says this, because I like to put shit real simple. And I like people to look at shit real simple. And stop listening to what Republicans be saying, and stop listening to what these goddamn Democrats be saying, because both of them are full of shit. There is price gouging.
Well,
That's a fact.
I don't know.
There is an incentive for oil companies not to produce more oil right now, and that's just a fact. There's an incentive there.
Well, let me ask you this.
Not doing it.
Let me.
Hold on 1 second. What's up, bro?
So
Go ahead.
So let me ask you this. So you say price gouging is a fact, and it's contributing to the high gas prices, and it makes sense. This is what you're saying. I'm not agreeing with you, but I'm just making sure I get it right. It makes sense that they are price gouging so that way they make more profit for their shareholders, right?
Well, not necessarily because of the price gouging in itself. When I say price gouging, all right, people try to put a lot of excuses out there for why prices rise up real fast, but go down real slow. And a lot of them will say, well, because they bought oil 2 months ago, and they try to make certain that their oil they get their money back out of their oil, right? But in a lot of ways, that's kind of stupid in a way. And I'm gonna tell you why. Let's say if you bought oil, you paid for oil 2 months prior to, and you bought it at a discount, all right? You bought it at a discount, and oil prices rose, and then all of a sudden they went back down. You ain't losing. You're not losing in that sense. But it's never a case where, see, you can't always be on the end where you're always saying that you don't want to lose. You lose. If I lower gas price right away, I'm losing. That's not always the case. But they say that to us consumers to get away with that making that extra money. Because that's not always the case. It just isn't. You can't always be on the downside. You're not always on the downside of that. And then how much they tell you that. They're not always on the downside. Now, could things be better? Like I said, I'm not trying to blame this what the oil companies do as far as when they make their profits. I don't have a problem with that. I have a problem with things that they could do, that reasonably do, that's not extra, put an extra burden on us. I mean, for the
Mhm.
most part. But when they come to making their money, they doing exactly what they're supposed to. I have zero problem with that. And I have a problem with Democrats, because I'm a Democrat. I have a problem with Democrats with them going and going in on them and being vitriolic towards them. I have a problem with that. Because they are a public traded company. And they have a fiduciary duty to their stockholders. Now, can people be, if that things that they are doing that could be done better? Yes, because if it would, the Republicans wouldn't have had a problem with passing the anti-gambling law. They wouldn't have had a problem with that, but yet they did. It's a reason why they had a problem with passing that law.
Yeah, so I want to.
Because
I actually want to comment right there on that point. So the reason I just was reiterating what you said was to make this point that it is not a bad thing for companies to make profit, because if they don't make profit, they go out of business. You understand that? I understand that. So, but it would also make sense for the company to further invest in the product that's making them money, right? So, what is the incentive? Yeah, but it makes sense. And the reason it doesn't make sense right now is because we have an antagonistic government when it comes to fossil fuel production. It's a fact. We do. And so, how are you going to want to increase production, which is millions of dollars of investments, that may not even see the day of light because your industry may be eliminated in 10 years?
let me ask you this. I mean, during the last, not during, I'm talking about during the last few years of Trump administration, which I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but how many oil companies shut down? And how many what you call them, refineries shut down during his administration? And according to everybody else, he was a oil-friendly guy. But yet, many shut down.
Yeah,
So the reason behind it had nothing to do with, according to what everybody would say would say is, to justify it is, it had nothing to do with his policies, right? It had nothing to do with his policies because he was oil-friendly. What's up, bro? How you doing, man? How you doing? Oh, just one of my friends just walked in. I drive trucks.
Gotcha. Right on. Right on.
I'm on a TikTok live. Boy, you'll be all right. I want to get you later on.
So I'm going to answer this question here. It says, why do you want to increase it? I think that you should increase it to lower prices. I think it would help to lower prices ultimately, and it would also make the nation more self-reliant on their energy, as opposed to decreasing production and then having to import a ton of oil. I think it would just be smarter to import more.
You're looking at that wrong in a sense. Because when it comes to oil is a globally traded commodity. It is, the oil companies will more likely export their oil so they can make more money on that oil. It's unlikely. Now, I'm not saying, like I said, this is a globally traded commodity.
Mm-hmm.
So people need to do a lot more investigating. And yes, I want this company to be oil sufficient or independent, whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. So if we had to shut off from everyone else, we can sustain our oil needs by ourselves. However, as of right now, it's a globally traded commodity. And since it is globally traded, that has zero effect on the cost of what it is in the United States. Period. If we can do, the more you can add to the market, yes, it'll lower the oil, lower the price of oil. The problem is, it is not in any oil company's interest, whether we were oil independent or not, to increase the production of oil when you making a shitload of money. And the demand, and especially if you just lost a shitload of money 2 years ago, but to the last 2 or 3 years, this is not an incentive. So we got to, when we have debates and we talk about these, we have to be intellectually honest and tell people that, look, this right here would have happened regardless of what president was in office. Why?
Yeah, 100%.
Because these companies just lost billions the last couple of years. So they're trying to recoup that and some, so they can at least get back on track at a minimum. And they're going to ride this gravy train until they can't ride it no more. Just like any other company would do in a legal sense. They're going to do that irregardless. So you cannot blame the Democrats, you cannot blame the Republicans. It has zero to do with your policy, at least at this time.
Yeah,
It has
so
something to do with something that's future, not now.
I do agree with you in a way, but there is somebody in the comments who just hit the nail right on the head. You know, you're talking about oil is a globally traded commodity, 100%. My argument would be deglobalize the oil, nationalize the oil, and a lot of these issues go away because, as I made my point earlier, toxic and masculine, the reason why oil prices are high has to do with the supply chain issue. And so you have this global commodity that's being traded, reduce the global reliance on this commodity, nationalize it, and then I think you would have a much better oil price, and there would still be incentive to reduce or to increase production, because let's say you're increasing production, and I'm trying to think of a good analogy off the top of my head. I can't right now at the moment.
Isn't that
But
socialism?
no,
Isn't that socialism?
no, I'm talking about nationalizing, not socialism.
I understand that, but that's what I'm saying.
No, socialism is this. No, socialism is this, because this is the second time somebody has accused me of that. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. This is the second time. No, I know. No, I know. I totally get what you're saying. And so anyway, this is the second time that statement that I made has been accused of socialism, when in reality, it's not socialism. Socialism is controlled, where basically the oil companies would then be controlled by the people. But if you nationalize the oil companies, they still have autonomy. You're just incentivizing them to keep the oil in the nation. But it's not that the people own it. It's that the oil company is still privately owned, but they're incentivized to solely supply the nation in which they are in. And I think that that's a very natural thing to do. For example, I am incentivized to provide food for my family over another family. So this would be the same, this would be kind of equivalent as to what I'm saying with the oil companies. Support your own nation before you start supporting other nations, because that's where you live, that's where your kids live, that's where your families live. So it makes more sense to do that than to have this global trading network, which if you have something like the lockdowns which happened, you then cripple it. You then make it weaker. And then it's harder to get good profits. It's harder to supply it across the world. Most people don't factor in. I know people in this industry intimately where they are, handling logistics. Most people don't factor in that it costs a lot more to ship your oil now than it ever has. And that's because of the supply chain issues. So you can claim it's price gouging, but I'm telling you, it's all supply chain, because it is due to the fact that we are reliant on other countries as well as ourselves to ship out and receive oil to sustain this environment. And now you have middlemen who also have to make a profit. And so they're increasing the prices of transport. And then you also have to increase the ability to, there was a time where a lot of people forgot this, but during the whole lockdowns where oil went to negative, it dropped to negative. And this is because we had no place to put it. We had no place to put it. It's all supply chain issue. It has nothing to do with price gouging. It has nothing to do with inflation. This is all supply chain. And so nationalize it would reduce it tremendously, and increasing production, there would be an incentive to do that. Not only from a PR standpoint, but you would still make money.
Here's the thing when it comes to when you talk about nationalizing oil. One, they're gonna lose a shitload of money. That's first and foremost. And then when you have to incentivize it, you got to incentivize it in a way that makes them feel as if they're going to make the same amount of money if it wasn't globalized, which they would not be able to. There's no way they would be able to meet that same quota, that same normal amount of money that they were making prior to. There's no way. So what oil company that you know will be okay with just nationalizing that particular company and then taking incentives? None. Because the money would not be there. What the profits would not be there that it was making prior to. So there is no incentive you can give them without raising the taxes of every American citizen here by a shitload in order to compensate them for that. You see what I'm saying? So is that when you're looking at price gouging and things of that sort, price gouging can go on different levels. When you got, like you said, you got the traders, you got the oil company, you got a whole lot of other intermediaries in between when from where they make the oil until the time you get the oil at the pump. So there's a lot of different ways to bump a price up. All right, oil prices, if everybody remember, oil prices started rising back when what's his name, Bush, or younger Bush, was president after 9/11. All right, prices went up and they stayed up, and they've been going up and up and up and up and up since his presidency. Period. All right. If you want prices to come down, people got to look at really good, sensible policies that make sense. You can't treat one side of the wheel and leave the other side dry. You gotta be on both ends of it. You can't just say all Republican solution is the answer, because it's not. It never is, and an all Democratic solution is not the answer either. It never is. It never works ever for either party. Once in a blue moon, do an all Republican solution works. Once in a blue moon, do an all Democratic solution works. Usually, the best answer is some of what the Democrats are saying and some of what the Republicans are saying. You just got to get the proper mix of what both are saying. But this system got everybody so into fighting with each other, so into beating up each other. Because it's coming from a Democrat, it's a bad answer. It's a bad answer. I'm gonna give you a perfect example of that. Back when they came over to Obamacare, years ago, the Democrats was all vitriolical on that one, I can't think of his name right now, about coming out with that type of care that Obama came out with. They was all for, Republicans all for it, and Democrats were all against it. All right? Now all of a sudden, when Obama comes with it, Democrats are all for it, Republicans are all against it. Why do you think that is? There's a good damn reason behind it. Because strife, greed, bucking heads, that's fighting. That's how you get votes. That's how you energize your base or people who tend to support Republicans or Democrats to come out and vote. And if people don't understand this, and because you get people in there talking about going crazy about what they believe is a Republican, you got people going crazy about what they believe is a Democrat. And both them motherfuckers be wrong.
Right. All right, man. So hey, we got somebody else that wants to come in here. So it's been a pleasure speaking with you, man. A lot that we agree on for sure. So thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
All right, yes, sir.
And then before I let so we'll let the next guest in, but I do want to address a couple comments here before we hear what they have to say. So first thing that I want to address is what Toxic and Masculine said, that the USD is weak. That isn't true. The United States dollar is actually extremely strong right now because we are going through deflation. Seems counterintuitive. Everybody's telling you otherwise. But usually when the mainstream media is telling you something, it's the opposite. And it is a supply chain issue, my man. It really is a supply chain issue. I would recommend Uneducated Economist. He's very informative on this. Vox Day is also another individual who's extremely informative on this. It's kind of hard to find true alternative sources to what's going on to the economy. But if you just think about it for, a little bit, you can easily come to the conclusion that supply chains are the reason why we're experiencing what we're experiencing with price hikes. I mean, you have big retail stores having to reduce their inventory before they can accept more things. And so across the board, the economy, aside from food and fuel, is going down tremendously. And now big retail stores are talking about giving full refunds for you to keep your item as opposed to taking your item back and giving you a refund. They'll want you to keep your item and give you a big refund. And flights are now giving absurd amount of money to give up your seats due to pilot shortages and other stuff. But the U.S. dollar is actually getting stronger. If you look at the USD index, it's actually getting stronger. It's stronger than it was 12 years ago. But anyway, we got I believe it's the Chunky Cajun.
What's up, dude?
How's it going?
Good, man. I was listening to your last call. I was kind of hoping to get in with him, but get in and speak to him. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree with what he's saying. I don't think it's a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I think it's you read the actual bills and you determine if it's stupid or not. Like, you know, I'm a business owner, and I was a business owner in the economy. And what you just said is absolutely correct. I'm opening up a food truck where I live right now. This is my second restaurant.
Nice.
And I've been 8 months in the planning process for the food truck simply because of shipping, just simply because of shipping problems having to do with the equipment that I ordered.
Yep, I'm a business owner too, man. So that's part of the reason why I understand this. I own 2 businesses, so this is a big reason why I understand it too, intimately.
Yeah, and that's the problem you have is you have people on both sides of the aisle. This is not unique, in my opinion, to just liberals or Democrats. You have people that don't understand that it's people like myself and you who truly make this economy work. With our, you know, it's the downward flow of money and me wanting to make money, having to spend money to make money. Mm-hmm. And if it becomes difficult for me to spend money, or let's say you can't find people who work, if you have something like me, I had to diversify my business because it's so hard to find restaurant people right now. I decided I wasn't going to open up a big restaurant. Mm-hmm. I decided I'm going to do a food truck because economically, I don't have to hire a bunch of people. I got 2 guys who are one of them is a corporate guy, and he completely wants out of the corporate life, and he wants to start something from scratch, and he wants to come in and help. But he wants to work. And I have my friend who wants to work because he's tired of being a sound man for all these people. Mm-hmm. And it's, you know, it solves an issue that I'd have had if I'd have opened up, let's say, a 50 or 100 seater restaurant, you know? Mm-hmm. And when it comes to that guy, he just I don't think he grasped that. Like, when he talked about Obamacare, he doesn't understand that was not health care. That was a forced tax.
Yes.
On especially on businesses.
100%.
And it wasn't free healthcare. It wasn't free healthcare because free healthcare means I get a healthcare card, I can go get my service, and it doesn't cost anybody money. What happened was they didn't give you free healthcare. What they did was they forced you to get healthcare by either paying the government or paying another company. This is why insurance companies loved Obamacare. They loved Obamacare because it's easy to become successful at something if the government holds a gun to your head and says you have to do it. Mm-hmm. You know? And right. That's what Obamacare essentially was. It was the government holding a gun to our head and saying, you have to carry insurance simply for living. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, we will fine you at the end of the year. So it was literally, if you couldn't afford insurance, they would take the tax money. It was their, right. It was them wanting you to not keep tax money. Basically, they wanted to take it from you.
Yeah, you know, my grandparents, they felt that directly. They were unable to afford health care, and so they didn't get it that year. And then they were taxed at the end of the year because they didn't have health care for which they couldn't afford.
And what's sad is when the government during that time realized, and this is where people don't understand, Obama was a terrible president because of his policies. And if you don't actually look at his policies and you think just because he was charismatic that he was a good president, you're fooling yourself. He was a terrible president because he had horrible ideas that harmed the economy. People like your grandma got hurt. So let's realistically look at the situation, right?
when they realized that people would still be able to make money off the tax system because they would just pay their fund and they would still get $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 extra. They up the ante and up the price. You know, you gotta. I do believe in the old adage, left wing, right wing, same bird.
100%.
The problem is you still have to stop feeding the bird.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I do want to add this because oil spill 2. By the way, guys, I'm only letting one guest on here at a time. The show gets very hectic with the topics we cover if I have more than one guest. So, so anyway, but I want to go back to his comment because that's who you wanted to address. He said, I understand what he's saying, but the prior Republican plan was the same. And yeah, that may be true, but I don't think what Chunky Cajun is stating is just because they were Democrat, the plan was bad. The idea in and of itself was bad. It doesn't matter if it was under Obama or under George Bush. The idea of that healthcare plan was horrible to begin with. I think that's the point he's making. Not that he's favoring a political party over the other and giving one slack for, because he just stated that, Republican and Democrats are two wings of the same bird.
Yeah, and look, Bush was a terrible president too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a businessman. I had my first restaurant I ever opened failed, and it threw me into bankruptcy. And let's be honest, right? Nobody bailed me out. And I fed my community. And I have to face the facts that I failed because of mistakes I made.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe, and this is why I think Bush was not a good president, because nothing should be too big to fail. Nothing.
Right.
That if those companies and the mortgage short, because I work in the real estate industry now, that they're setting it up again for another mortgage shortage, for another bubble to bust. If you realistically look at it, it's they effectively told a company you can go and do whatever you want, and they're still doing this to this day. A company can go and do whatever it wants, and we'll pick up the tab.
Mm-hmm.
And who wouldn't take advantage of that?
Right.
Who wouldn't jump on that opportunity to actually have? And this is where this is the Republican thing, but it's and realistically, let's be honest, Donald Trump was the only person who fought against that. Who actively fought against that. Now, there are things about Donald Trump I didn't like. There are things about Donald Trump I like, but actively, he's the only president that actually fought against that. I just don't believe you should be too big to fail. But when it comes to that, you have to look at the policies that are pushed forward and not say it's somewhere in the middle. And this is the problem with we're so intellectually lazy as people that we don't do that anymore. We don't actually look at things and be like, is this smart or is this good? Is this bill good or is it not? We're just like, whatever. He said it's that, so it's that.
Right.
I don't know if you agree with me or not.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things that I agree with you there on. I mean, there was some things that I really liked about Trump. There were a lot of things that I didn't like about Trump, and unlike most people, it had nothing to do with his rhetoric. I think his rhetoric was perfect. I am in total support of the things he said. I mean, somebody needed to say the things that he said, so I commend him for having the courage to do so. I totally disagreed when he locked down the world, or at least the United States. I totally disagreed when he pushed Operation Warp Speed. And the mass printing of money wasn't cool, but there were a lot of good things that he did. I would say.
And also also not working on bringing down the national debt. I don't agree with that. But I will tell you one thing that he does that a lot of the only ones I've seen do it recently are the last two Republican presidents that we've had. The only two that have stood up and have said, I messed up, I shouldn't have done that.
Mm-hmm.
He said it when it came to the situation with Stormy Daniels, and I heard Bush say it when it came to going into Iraq. You don't hear that from the other side.
Right.
You don't hear them have the guts to stand up and say, you know what, I messed up, shouldn't have done that. It's always pass the buck. And you know who acts like that? My children. because they're immature.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
that's it, brother. That's all I wanted.
Yeah.
I heard you talking, man. Let me give you a follow, brother.
I appreciate that, man. I really do, and I hope your business does well. Give it a plug. Give it a plug for anybody that's in your area. Where's it located? What's it called?
We're gonna be in Lafayette, Louisiana. We're gonna be called Catan's Eatery. It's gonna be a food truck. I do Cajun style foods, rice and gravies, etouffee, gumbo. We're gonna be doing some po' boys and some sandwiches. And during the seasons, we're gonna be doing ball seafood. I bought blue pincher crabs. And I bought shrimp, and during season we bought crawfish. I don't know where you're located, but if you're ever in this area, you come holler at me. We're gonna be parked in a specific spot. We're on Facebook. We're on Facebook and actually on TikTok. You can go look at us.
Awesome.
Also, we do a Sunday barbecue. I cut my teeth doing barbecue competitions. I used to travel, so I do a Central Texas style barbecue with my great grandma and my grandma's Cajun salads.
Nice, man. That's awesome. I'm a little ways away from you, but if I ever make my way to Louisiana, I'll be sure to look for your food truck.
Where are you at?
I am in Ohio.
Ohio? Man, I got a friend in Ohio.
Oh, yeah?
Jamie, my friend Jamie out there, he actually does it. Big something barbecue. He has a little food truck that he goes around every once in a while and does. Follow me back. I'm gonna look him up and I'm gonna send you a message. He does really good stuff too. I love Jamie, brother. And I've been in Ohio. I got several friends that live out there. It's a wonderful place.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I'll definitely give you a follow. It's not letting me come to your page right now, but I'll write a note. What is your handle the Chunky Cajun?
Yep, that's me.
All right, cool. So I just wrote a note on my laptop. I will definitely give you a follow. And yeah, man. Thank you for coming on. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for your time, brother.
All right, peace. All right, guys. I love the econ discussion, but I have to go. All of you have a great evening. You too, Toxic and Masculine. I'm in Ohio as well. Love it here, but love to travel out of here. Ohio's okay. Trump, in his word, would get rid of all ethnic groups if possible. That's definitely not true. Trump's tax credit the tax credit definitely helped out. I know my wife and I benefited from the tax credit when that came into play, so that was cool. What are some other comments in here? I love Louisiana food. I've never had Louisiana food. I mean, not like true Louisiana food. What do you mean by globalism? Globalism is just the working of all countries together, essentially, which is not really a good thing. Accountability is key. Yeah, for sure. Trump passed many bucks. Yeah, yeah. You all need to snap. It's behind the government. The ideals of globalism trying to push. What policies? Yeah. Let's see. Most civic discussion I've seen in hours. Awesome. I'm glad that this is one of the most civil discussions you've seen. All we got was $1,200 from Biden, thanks, and we got a bunch of stimmies from Trump as well. It's the control by the very, very few, the world population. Well, no, I mean globalism in its essence is like all the governments working together, which you could say are the very, very few, I guess. But it's also beyond policymakers, money makers, things like that. Louisiana does have the best tasting food, and Texas is right behind them. Trump lives rent-free in your head. Okay. The stimmy checks will just hurt us in the future. Yeah, they will. They will. Yeah, I don't think I've ever had Louisiana or Texas food from the States, actually. Not like, oh, this is claiming to be Louisiana food or Texas-style food. I do have family in Texas. Don't know that I have any family in Louisiana, but I don't see why I couldn't make my way down to Louisiana. So, all right, guys, unless there's somebody else that wants to hop in here or any other questions in the comment section that you would like me to answer, I'm going to get out of here. So, I'll give it a few minutes and then I'll pop on out. But yeah, feel free if you want to come in. A new person, if somebody new wants to hop in, feel free to send a request. And if you got any questions that you want to ask, any comments, anything like that, feel free to ask them. Give it a few minutes, like I said, and then I'll get out of here. Yeah, I didn't know that. There's the second highest homicide rate. Are you familiar with the world? Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm totally familiar with that. I've been down the rabbit hole for years, my man. For years. And the Great Reset, here's a big illusion. It's nothing new. There's been many of great resets in history. This isn't the first one. This is, I don't know how many, but this ain't the first one. How would a president for life work? Just like that. The president would be there for life. They would hold that position for life. That's how it would work. And I think that we should have a president for life. Well, I guess if there are 80 going into it, then it wouldn't be bad. Well, ideally, you would want them to be really young. Like somebody in their 30s, maybe even younger. I mean, kings used to be like 18. All right. Let's get rid of this guy. Blake Mead is vanishing. Yeah, I know. We covered that a lot when it was first happening. I haven't kept up to date with it, but yeah, that is a big issue. Brazilian president just sanctioned against Brazil have failed. You would have to be really sure that they were the right fit, though. Still do. Still do. Can you hand me a charger? Yeah. Hey, what's going on?
Hi. Aren't all presidents destroying USA?
I'm sorry?
Aren't all presidents destroying USA?
Aren't all presidents destroying USA? I would say no. I mean, there are, as I've already addressed a couple times earlier, presidents by and large are a figurehead. So I don't think that they really do much destruction.
By large.
I'm sorry?
Let's say by large. I mean, are most of them destroying USA?
I think there's other more powerful forces at work that are having more of a influence on the destruction of the USA.
Interesting.
I think that presidents are mostly figureheads. They have a powerful position, but there are more powerful people than them in the world.
True. But God is the greatest, the one with most power.
Amen. Amen, brother. I totally agree with that.
So who do you think right now of the humans is most powerful, most wealthy, most control, like family or that?
I don't think that we know that. I don't think that the most
You don't
powerful. I don't think anybody knows, unless you're very close to them. But the people that you know who are powerful, they're not the most powerful families. Like the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, the Sachs, all that. They're not. The Sacklers, rather. They're not the most powerful families. I don't think anybody on our level in society knows who they are.
This reminds me of that funny guy, Andrew Tate.
Oh, Andrew Tate. I like Andrew Tate. I think, well, actually, Frank Ribb just answered it pretty well. The most powerful thing aside from God that's influencing the world is the devil for sure. That's who I would say is at top of the pyramid. But as far as a human goes,
Bro, what color is your Bugatti?
I don't have a Bugatti, so I can't. I'm a brokey. I'm a brokey compared to Andrew. I was in Hustlers University. Yeah. I know. He's an interesting man. I like the way he thinks. I think he's a good influence for a lot of men. Got a comment here. It says, "What does God do with the power? Creates order. I mean, that's where order comes from. Is God. So without God, you would have no order. Without God, you wouldn't have life. So pretty much the reason you're alive is, what God does with power is let you live. Does God have more power? More power than who? I mean, like, are you asking, is God more powerful than we've seen God? Probably. We can't test how strong God is. Which God? There's 4,000. There's only one true creator. There has to be logically. So that one. Evil.
Brother, you're Christian or?
I am a Christian, yes. Yourself?
No.
What are you, if you don't mind me asking?
Muslim.
Right on.
From Europe.
Right on. I have a lot of respect for the Muslims. I really, really do. I know a lot of Christians like to give you shit, man, but you guys are very, very based. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of things that I respect more about the Muslim faith than I do the Christian faith. I mean, a lot of Christians are weak today. They don't stand up for what they believe in, but Muslims sure do. At least the majority of them.
I can tell you a little bit truth about in my country and some people that call themselves Muslims.
Okay.
Yeah, so I heard like some guy. He's like, we call guys like him narcoman, meaning the guys that consume drugs and that shit.
Yeah.
Like, I heard him, like in English, for word swearing has two meanings. He used two same meanings while he was saying about Allah, meaning God.
Mm-hmm.
He was cursing God and he was swearing. I mean, that's not really funny, but
I get you though. I get you. Yeah, man. So, anything else that you want to talk about?
not really. I just joined.
Yeah, man. It's all good. Well, I'm gonna get you off of here. And then if anybody else wants to come on in, you can. If not, and you want to come back on, you got something else you want to say, feel free.
No problem. Bye.
See ya.
Have a blessed day.
You too. All right. So I believe in my true God, which is Apollo. He's the one true God. Okay. Great topics. God bless you. The gospel of Jesus Christ is good news. Yeah, it is. God bless you as well. Is God more powerful than evil? Of course he's more powerful than evil. He could be a friend. So, yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to get out of here. Been on here for 2 hours. Thank you all for joining. Be sure to follow everywhere, MOT Media. And, yeah, we'll be back here tomorrow at 10 p.m. Climate change will happen regardless. Yeah, fact. The last guy, he could be a friend. Yeah, for sure. I'm in the box, bro. Oh, okay. My bad. My bad. I'll let you in. I forgot that you were in there. Sorry, Larry Long Pockets. What's going on, man?
What's up, Mont News? So I'm on break here at work, so I don't actually know how long I've got. But,
Okay.
you've got an interesting list there.
Yeah.
You want to go down through it?
Sure.
So I don't know exactly what your take on Joe Biden as destroying the USA is. You kind of hit a little bit on my beliefs with that last guy. I don't think Joe Biden's destroying the USA personally. I think that he's a puppet. I think that he's kind of the spokesperson for his cabinet and the House and the Senate. I think personally, I think the media is a large part to play with what's destroying the U.S. I really believe, and I've been saying it for years, that they need to be held more accountable on some of the things that they say and do. I think that they're personally responsible for the race war that we have in the U.S. right now. I think that they're personally responsible for the war on police officers. I think that they play a large part in the mass shootings that we have going on right now. Not to say that I don't understand why they're reporting it, because bad news always sells.
Right.
However, I think they need to focus less on maybe the topics of that bad news. Take, for instance, the mass shooting.
Well, let's be careful.
They never really.
Just so you're aware, they really like to censor me on here. So let's be careful on our language. So.
Okay, so instead of celebrating, say, the suspects, they need to maybe celebrate the victims. I think they focus too much on the suspects, and I think that that's why we have so many of them. People want their 15 minutes of fame. So that's my thoughts on that. And I really don't think that it's a new thing that the media has been doing. I think that it may have started back in 2008 or even earlier. If I can think back that far, I think the news really started with their propaganda and spreading their agenda back in 2008.
Yeah.
So I'm curious as far as the climate change lockdowns. What is that all about?
Yeah. So nothing official yet, but I'm predicting, as are a few other people, that that's the next thing to come, next big thing to come. And basically, they're going to be under the guise, in my opinion, of preserving our energy. So it will be in an effort to preserve fossil fuels, but then it will be used to destroy the fossil fuel industry, at least attempt to even further, and then encourage people to go to electric vehicles, and then encourage renewable sources of energy, and then just to also encourage smart cities, so that way they can monitor emissions that are being emitted by buildings and such, and it'll also be under the guise of mitigating CO2 emissions. There's a lot of things that go into it, but ultimately, I think it's going to be introduced because of huge power outages we're going to see probably into winter throughout the world. Then we'll start seeing climate change lockdowns to preserve energy, but then they'll morph into something else, as most things do. But yeah, that's basically what I believe is going to happen next.
That's an interesting take. I can definitely see that happening. As far as climate change, getting rid of the reliance on fossil fuels until we run out. I mean, yeah, I'm going to assume you're American, just by your accent and everything.
Yep.
You know as well as I do, Americans love a few things, and their automobiles are part of it. That's part of our American heritage. And I really don't see them being able to force the electric vehicles and the stop of using fossil fuels just based off of our lifestyles alone. And I mean, if you look, gas prices are extremely high everywhere, record highs everywhere. I believe I read an article, Utah, it's up to like $12 a gallon, and that's the highest that's reported in the U.S.
Mhm.
And if you drive around, there's still the same amount of vehicles on the road. People are
Right.
willing to let their rent go, let their house bills go, let their electric turn off, but they're not willing to let their cars go. And it's absolutely crazy to me. I pay anywhere from $500 to $600 a month just in fuel, with the fuel prices being around $5 a gallon.
Mhm.
And I have no intention on not driving my V8 pickup. I'm one of those arrogant, ignorant Americans that love my car. So
I'm with
I'm
you,
going to
man.
continue to do it until I can't anymore.
Yeah, I'm with you entirely.
So your next subject, having big families, I actually agree with this one. Probably not for what you do, but our economy is struggling. If you look at Roe v. Wade, I think I think it's a political agenda to try to get our economy back up and running. We've got fewer and fewer people, and if you look in the next 10 years, we're going to have fewer and fewer people in the workforce.
Mhm.
And I think that they're going after Roe v. Wade in a sense to try to have more people around to be able to keep the economic machine moving forward.
Mhm. Yeah, so
Just my 2 cents on that.
yeah, so I partially agree. Obviously, we need more people to have a more productive society, and if we have more people, the likelihood that we get really smart people goes up, and those really smart people can hopefully do really good things for society. So that's one main reason why it would be good to have families. As far as your opinion on Roe v. Wade, interesting one. I haven't heard that particular take before. I would say that this is kind of a different topic, but I think Roe v. Wade was overturned because there are so many other ways to ensure there is still the unaliving of life, if you catch my drift.
Yeah.
When it comes to injections of certain kinds, when it comes to our diet, when it comes to the fact that there's more prideful, if you get what I'm saying, population. There's a higher prideful population who can't have children because it's impossible to have children in those relationships.
Yeah.
So I think that that's the reason why Roe v. Wade was overturned. That's my opinion, but I really like yours is interesting, really interesting. Like I said, I haven't heard that before, but I think that big families are also important because family is wealth, community is wealth. People have it twisted, especially in the West, in America specifically, that you need money to be wealthy. When in reality, if you have a strong family, you're wealthier than a billionaire who has no family.
Exactly. I do believe that for sure. Yeah, and the big family thing, I mean, it goes back to, it's also ensuring your future. I mean, you raise your kids, and the way that it's intended, family's intended, is you take care of your kids while they can't take care of themselves, and then vice versa.
Yep.
They take care of you whenever you're not able to take care of yourself.
100%.
And that's the way that the family core should be. However, last couple of decades or so, I'd probably even go back to maybe the last 30, maybe 40 years, it's gotten way away from that. My girlfriend is in nursing. She just started hospice nursing, and the amount of clients that she has that have nobody to take care of them, or let me rephrase that, they don't have anybody willing to take care of them, is absolutely appalling to me.
Yeah,
they should have their children or grandchildren around to be able to do her job.
I couldn't agree more. My wife and I, my big vision is to be able to own a lot of land, have a nice home where our family can continuously grow for generations, and that land will be able to sustain the family throughout time. But for our lifetime, essentially, would be to take care of our parents on our property as opposed to sending them off to a nursing home. Because as you rightfully said, and most people fail to realize this today, the cycle of life should be your parents raise you when you can't take care of yourself, or you have trouble taking care of yourself, and then you take care of your parents as they have trouble taking care of themselves. It's just the way that it should be, and unfortunately, it's not because, well, society is it lacks morality, and it lacks true love. It lacks the emphasis on family. Right now, everybody thinks that if you were in here about an hour ago when we were talking about having big families, pretty much everybody in the comment section was saying that I was wrong, that you could have a big family today because you need this money and you can't live a happy life if you have a big family. And it's like, you do understand that there are many people in the world today who are what we would call poor, but they have big families and they're able to feed those families every day and they're happy. Like, this is just a reality of the world. You don't need money to raise a big family. Don't get me wrong. It is convenient to have a lot of money if you have a big family, but it is not necessary. It really isn't. And, people don't seem to notice that. And I think that children are the best investment that one can make. And it also gives you a deeper understanding of humanity. It gives you, I'm a spiritual man, I'm a religious man. It gives you a better understanding of God, in my opinion. It forces you to look at things differently. And it's just all around a beautiful thing. It really, really is. And one thing that I encourage people to do, as I'm doing with my family, joint bank accounts. Because let's say you have 10 children, right? Those 10 children get older. You all are working together as far as pulling your resources. Let's say you all make $30,000 a year. So there's 11 people working, right? Because let's say you don't want mama to work, right? You want to be a good man. You want to have your wife stay at home. Not saying that you're a bad man if your wife doesn't work. My wife works from home. But anyway, the ideal life for most people who are traditional would say, I want my wife to be able to raise the children. And let's assume you have 10 sons then, right? You guys all make $30,000 a year. Well, if you try to live off of 30 grand a year on your own, it could be difficult, but it is definitely doable, and you can live a comfortable life off of that. But now imagine you're pulling all your resources together. You guys are collectively bringing in like $330,000 a year. So why not do that with your family, who you should be able to trust more than anybody? I think that that's what people should do with families. They do that in the Middle East. They do that in Eastern nations. I think that that's the way to go with families. People don't realize how powerful a big family is, especially if you pull resources.
Well, that could potentially work if you instill that at an early age. I will tell you, and you hit on it while you were talking, and it goes back up to destroying the U.S. Americans in general are selfish.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't used to always be that way, and it is increasingly getting worse. We are selfish. And I will tell you that with your theory of pulling your income together with your family, that would have been an absolute horrible idea until I had a family of my own. When I was 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way up to 25, I was really irresponsible with money. So I knew that I had this amount of money to be able to spend. I would spend every penny that I had, knowing that I had it. Now, you take me being selfish as a young man and knowing that now I've got $330,000 as a potential income. Being selfish, I'd spend a large portion of that, if I'm being completely honest, as a young man.
Well, I would say this.
Family, and I'm a whole lot more money savvy, and I don't spend as much because I know I need to have responsibility,
right,
self-control, and so on and so forth. But young me, oh yeah, the buddies want to go to Vegas, I'm gone.
Well, I do want to say this in response to that, and then we can go to the next topic if you like. In response to that, I would say that you would probably be a different person if you had that kind of resource, if you have those kind of resources. And I'll tell you why. Because everybody can see who's spending it. So your spending is more transparent. There's more opportunity to be shamed for your spending. There's more opportunity for correction for your spending. And so I would say that it would actually have helped you to had your resources pulled together, because it would have made you more responsible and forced you at an earlier age to consider others when it comes to money. As you said, now the reason why you're more responsible could be with age, but also because you have a family to consider. Well, you would have had that family to consider
Yeah.
much earlier as well, and you would have had that correction much earlier to be like, hey, like, this is for the family. We see you're spending a little more than us. Like, let's be respectful to the fact that we're pulling these resources together. I think it actually would have the opposite effect than you think it would. I could be wrong. We can never know,
and
but
I see your point and I see your theory, but I know me as a young dude. I'm telling you, my buddies would
Fair
be
enough.
like, hey, you want to go somewhere for the weekend? Yeah, let's do this. I know it.
Fair enough.
But I see your point.
Yeah.
So your next one I found interesting. Presidents for life. So that worked in the past as far as kings and princes, whatever, queens, so on and so forth, and still works in the UK. But you've got the flip side of the coin. How long has Putin been in power? And look what he's doing. Fidel Castro. You've got Saddam Hussein. You've got these leaders that had the potential to stay in power. What was it? Adolf Hitler. You had all of these people that had the potential to stay in power for the rest of their life. There would have to be some kind of guideline, some kind of sanction, something as a fail-safe, because even we'll use a president that everybody seems to love, JFK. Everybody brings him up as being one of the best presidents that we've ever had. If he had the potential to get into office at 20 years old and stay in office until he was 90 something years old, there would have to be a fail-safe, like a red button, so to speak, to get rid of him if he potentially changed through those years. Because if somebody has power, well, Spider-Man says it best: with great power comes great responsibility. So if you start to falter from that responsibility and you start becoming an evil person, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the presidents for life. And it may just be because I'm used to our democracy as it is now. We get good presidents, we get bad presidents. But again, going back up to the first topic, I think that they're puppets. I think that they fall victim to their cabinets, the House and the Senate.
Yeah, so I am of the mindset that we should have a president for life. And I'll first address why I believe that by responding to the last thing you just said, corruption. Essentially is what you were saying, that, there's outside forces, and we both agreed with this. There's outside forces, presidents or figureheads. The reason they become figureheads is because they have to cater to a wealthy base in order to even remain in their position for more than 4 years. And they then have to get favors, etc. Not saying that kings are immune to this, but can you point a finger and tell me everybody who owns a politician? You probably can't. Nobody can. Nobody can tell you exactly who owns what politician. It would be and that nobody can tell you what politician is corrupt and which isn't. It's hard. I mean, some of them, yes, but not all of them. Definitely, presidents. You can maybe sometimes make the argument they're corrupt, they're not corrupt. But as far as the whole system goes, it's very hard to pinpoint who's exactly corrupt, who's doing the corrupting. Whereas in a quote unquote monarchy, it would be very easy to see who's corrupt. And then it should be maybe easy as well to find out who's doing the corruption, at least easier than it is in a democracy. Because you're reducing the number of players. all around. So that's one thing that I would say. And then secondly, it's very hard to have an effective country that is sustainable when you have to change leadership every 4 years, potentially, definitely every 8 years. There's not much you can accomplish in 4 years to 8 years. There really isn't. It's very hard to do so. So if you really want to
I agree.
accomplish stuff,
I don't think we should have a 4-year term.
yeah, I think
we should have a standard 8-year term and they're out.
yeah, I mean that may be better, but I think that if you give somebody the presidency for life, your voter base would instantly become smarter because their decision would be um, more important. Because let's say you vote for somebody and you're like, well, I voted for the wrong guy, but it's okay. We can get him out there in 4 years. You can't do that if you have a president for life. So it'll make the voter base think longer and harder about who they're going to put into office. And then it just offers a coherent and consistent figurehead and ruler of the nation. And deep down, everybody wants one ruler. There's never been really a society that's thrived at any size that we're aware of that's had multiple rulers. It's always been one consistent one. The longest lasting. So
Before we get too far into that,
yeah,
I want to go back to what you said about the voter base being smarter and them caring about their votes.
yeah,
I think the simple solution for that is to get rid of the electoral college. So, and I'll give you an example. When Biden and Trump ran against each other in the state of Oklahoma, you had the chance to vote for Kanye West. Now, I'll tell you, I was going to vote for Trump just because I don't want a politician to lead our country. I think a businessman needs to come in and try to clean things up. Now, I don't agree with everything that Trump's done. I don't agree with everything Trump believes, but I believe a businessman could come in and run our country because essentially our country, with the way economics is set up, is just a giant business. So that's my philosophy on that. Now, that being said, I voted for Kanye West. Why? Because we have the Electoral College. Oklahoma is historically a red state. I knew Trump was going to get Oklahoma. What happened? Oklahoma got Trump. Now, the other states went the route that they went. Biden's in office. It is what it is.
mm-hmm.
I'm not one of the Trumpers that is super mad that Biden is in office. Do I agree with some of the things that he does? No. Do I agree with others? Yeah. But by no means did I ever think that Kanye West was ever going to make president. He wasn't even on the ballot across all 50 states. However, how many times do you get to vote for Kanye West for president? So that's why I did what I did.
Yeah, you might get
But
it.
also knowing that historically a Republican's going to win Oklahoma.
Right.
So that being said, I think that if I would have known that every single ballot would have been counted and did actually count towards the vote, I'd have voted for Trump.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying there. And hey, man, we got somebody else that wants to come on in. So we covered all the topics here. So I'm going to let them in, and this will be the last guest, and then I'm going to get out of here. So thank you very much for coming on, man. It's been a good combo.
It was good talking with you.
What's going on?
I see that you're saying have big families.
Yeah.
Do you know how much that really cost, and how, and this kind of, and what we are in right now, how much?
How much?
A lot. I mean,
how much is a lot?
Two parents, and some people, people have 4 kids. That's probably going to cost a lot of money, and it depends on what kind of job you have. Some people, even people that are teachers, and that's going to cost them a lot.
What's a lot of money?
I have two friends. I mean, I have two. I have two cousins that are teachers. They each one has two kids, and one has one kid. And the person that has two kids, they can't really, because of their job right now, they can't really go on vacation as much as they used to.
Okay.
You're saying you have a big family.
Do you need a vacation? Is a vacation necessary to live?
Having a big family that costs a lot of money, food, Christmas. You have to think about the presents and stuff.
Why do you need to buy them expensive presents on Christmas? And why do you need to?
It doesn't have to be expensive. I mean, like, every kid wants something. It's gonna be. It doesn't matter if it's expensive or not. If you want a big family, it's gonna cost you something. Food.
Yeah.
Even you have to have a lot of food. It's a big family, a lot of food.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah. So why have a big family then?
Why not? You haven't given me.
At least having two.
I mean, why not have a big family?
What about the people that are on disability?
What
People that
about
have
them?
disabilities?
What does this have to do with being a big family?
I'm on. Yeah, they have. If they want, what if they want a family?
But what does this have to? Okay.
I'm on disability.
Okay.
Or if they want, they can't.
Do you know how to use the internet? You can make a lot of money off the internet now, man. A lot. And you don't need to be that smart. You don't need to be that able to do anything. You just need to have motivation.
Apparently people on here don't agree with you.
It doesn't matter that they agree with me. They're wrong. You're wrong. They're wrong. Big families are wealth.
Joe Biden is destroying USA, and you're right about that, though. And pretty much the whole world is going crazy, though. Is climate change lockdown? Pretty much climate change. One thing I don't agree about. I don't understand is that the fossil fuels. You can get 8 countries to stop the fossil fuels, but you cannot get every country to stop. You could the fossil fuel and stuff. No, I'm saying. I mean, like, there's always going to be a country, at least with those fossil fuels and stuff. I'm with the gas thing. I'm not going to have an electric car. First of all, I can't drive because I have epilepsy. So.
I got you. Yeah. Yeah, it's not fun, man. I'm sorry to hear that.
Should we have a president for life? Should we have a president for life? Can you explain that for me?
Yeah, so I mean, it's an open question to anybody. I say yes.
I mean, like, can you explain that what you're talking about when you say should we have a president of life? I mean, like, for a certain, are you talking about like a certain president?
Yeah, so just that would be what I prefer, is to the next president, whatever, president for life, for their entire life.
So for the rest of our life, we should just have that president?
Yeah.
What if it ends up being Joe Biden?
Okay, I mean, he doesn't have much longer to live, so.
Yeah, you're right. But what if it ends up being a crappy president, though?
We have a bunch of crappy presidents for 4 to 8 years.
Yeah. So
we already have crappy presidents. Well, that's my point. Like that's my point. Like, we already have that. We already seen what that's like. And we do know that monarchies are the longest lasting forms of governments that have ever existed, to my knowledge.
What you need to do is replace the senators is we need term limits in Congress and Senate.
I don't know. I think that their term limit should be longer. And I think they should be
Are you
paid more.
kidding me?
No, I think that politicians should be paid more and their term limit should be much longer.
Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi. Oh my gosh, Nancy Pelosi's that bitch. She's Cortez. That bitch. She's even worse. Oh, I can't say her. I just want her to. And what's the other one? I'm not gonna be something. Omar.
Yeah.
Omar. So you think that they should be paid more and stay in there more?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. I'm sure. You want them to keep on ruining the country too?
It's not so much them; it's the people that are ruining the country. It's the fact that society has lost their morality.
Democrats love Cortez.
Yeah, and people in society, by and large, specifically in the United States, have lost their morality, have lost their moral compass, which is why we're in the situation we're in. It's not because of the politicians we have; it's because we've lost our moral code. Because if we had more integrity, if we had more integrity, a higher moral standard, these people would never be in office in the first place. And I think that paying them more.
Oh, excuse me,
And I think that paying them more will mitigate rather the revolving door, which what I'm referring to is congressmen, whether it be House of Representatives or senators, going into being a lobbyist. The reason they do that is because they get paid a lot of money and they also have good networks. So if you pay them more, you then mitigate the potential of corruption. It makes sense why they do what they do, because they make roughly $174,000 a year, and they're required to have two primary residents, one in their home state and one in Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. is one of the most expensive places to live. So having to do two.
Also, they make trades with Republicans probably get like from the NRA and get Democrats probably get from probably like the LGBT stuff and the abortion stuff, and they make these trades and they get even more money.
Yeah, so you would eliminate, you would mitigate that, is what I'm saying. So you would reduce that.
So you think politicians should get more money?
Yes, because you would reduce exactly what you're talking about. That would happen far less if you just gave them bigger checks.
So you planning on running so you can get more rich?
Maybe I'll run
Okay,
someday.
bye.
Maybe I'll run someday. You could just vote in people that can't be bought. Yeah, good luck. Because then you got to get really wealthy people. What about lobbyists? Society, liberals especially, have socially engineered by the. Yeah. Nothing to see here. Just I don't support Trump. This is such terrible logic. Actually, it's not. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah, so I mean, you would still have lobbyists. There's nothing wrong with lobbying. Trump was the latest bribable president in history. I don't think so. He was already independently wealthy, although he did have a lot of debt. Source, trust me, bro. I don't know what that's about. This is not satire. Least bribable. My bad. I didn't see that. Sorry, Joseph. They voted in their own raises and is getting worse. Yeah, I think that they should get paid more money. They should serve longer terms, and the president should be president for life. So Nancy should get paid more. Yeah, I think that it would eliminate. Not I keep saying eliminate, but I mean to say mitigate. It would mitigate a lot of corruption. The problem isn't that he's bribable or not. But he's a. You don't even know what that word means. President for life, yes. Mack truck union heads would die poor before taking a dime from special interest groups. That's what you think. Trump is not Jesus, but still the most honorable since Lincoln. Lincoln wasn't very honorable. Not very honorable. But Trump has probably been one of the better politicians in our day. Climate change lockdown is the next PSYOP. Yep, you get it. You get it. You get it. You get it. This is what I'm warning people of. So when this becomes mainstream, know where you heard it from. I can't stand you, socialist. That's cool because I'm not one. So what a freaking clown show. Yeah, man. Blackout's coming. Yep. And then you're going to have climate change lockdown, probably. Disciples. What a freaking clown show. Then leave. I mean, I'll do it for you. Bye. Banhammer. I'm going to be very liberal with banhammers now, guys. So we gotta make sure we have a good community here. Dude, I thought you were going to bed like a half hour ago. I know, but people keep coming on, and the Cash App says otherwise. No, you pay people. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Is it socialism to ask to get paid for something that you do? That you're providing some type of service for somebody? This is obviously a form of entertainment. We have 66 people in here, and it's been fluctuating from 66 to over 100 to almost 200. So why do news casters get paid money? Why do TV channels get paid money? It's dumb. Begging for money. I don't need your money. I mean, watch this. Banhammer. Boom. Shows you how much I need your money. He's a nationalist interested in scapegoating minority groups within democracy. That's not a fascist, just so you know. Look up the definition. Get your own guns and be ready. Get a real job. I mean, it's very interesting how people say that you don't have a job when you post up your Cash App. It's like, I do work for this show. I prepare for this show. I provide a platform for people. We have almost 40,000 followers on here. We make content like crazy. Brother, you can ban as many people as you want, but you'll always be bald. I'm getting tired of the bald jokes. I don't get, the only reason you guys are saying that is because of the white screen behind me. We need to get lobbyists and professional politicians. You always have lobbyists. You want lobbyists. You do. Capitalism raises more people out of poverty than any other ism. Poverty is a social construct. I'm in favor of, the free market. Well, not the free market. I'm in favor of capitalism, but poverty is, it's a social construct. Poverty is also a state of mind. Yes, it is. Frank Rib, you get it. You get it. There's no free market. Yeah, and there shouldn't be. I'm against a total free market. There should be regulations, 100%. Poverty is a product of abject corruption. No, it's not. Poverty is a social construct. Went to buy gas earlier today and they were out. Crazy. Where are you at, Sec 91889? I'm in favor of our country. Give us our tax money back instead of giving it to a corrupt country. Yeah. The U.S. is run by oligarchs. Yeah. I'm not referring to regulations. Oklahoma, Arkansas border. Interesting. Yeah, there were some diesel outages where I live. Yeah, the world is run by them for sure. The market isn't free because it's rigged. Hmm, I don't agree with that. Like, what do you mean the market is rigged? I partake in the market every day as a business owner, and I don't rig the market. My industry isn't rigged, at least from what I can see, from what I'm experiencing. Heard anything on the Texas pipeline explosion? No, I have not. I have not. I'll look it up right now. Sounds interesting. Looking it up right now. Computer's taking a while. Poverty is not necessarily a mindset; it is definitely a social construct in the highest level. Yes. Um, all right, I got the article pulled up here. Rigged from the top. Nah, Trump ruined America. I can see how one can make that argument. If they were honest, there would be no poverty. Joseph, you're wrong. There are tribes that exist today that don't know what money is. You would call them impoverished. They would say they're wealthy. Poverty is a social construct. GameStop had the market stopped. Yeah. We want a president for life. I've already addressed this several times. Trump was the worst president ever in American history. Okay. Trump saved America. How did Trump ruin America? Trump was a great president. I agree with that. He was overall a great president. Maybe he'll have an opportunity to do it again in 2024. Biden is the absolute worst. Yeah, probably in modern history. So, pipeline explosion today. Flames from blast could be seen 30 miles away. Interesting. I'll have to look more into this. No, he wasn't. Okay. Biden prime. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm gonna get out of here for real this time. Much love. Thank you all for showing up. We'll be here tomorrow, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Until then, have a great night. Peace.